It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to jump on the gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to discuss the consolidation of manufacturing. Folks, anytime things start to consolidate, you can expect things to change. That's just a fact. And as I started thinking about these OEMs consolidating their manufacturing, and then I started thinking about how will that affect the street level, what kind of implications are going to happen based on these consolidations, who's going to join these consolidations, who's going to start new consolidations. So at the end of the day, I thought, you know what? Let's talk about it here on the show. So without any further ado, let's jump on that gigantic, sharp, interactive board, and I'll share what I put together for you. First thing I want to do is show you this. It's a checkerboard. Above the checkerboard, it says the industry used to play checkers, narrowly focused and thinking one decision ahead. Checkers is an easy game. It doesn't take a lot of concentration. It's a narrowly focused, right? And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that to be mean to those friends of mine that sell supply and service print equipment. But realistically, the industry was pretty easy, right? I mean, come on. You sell a machine out there, you put some toner in it, you'd service it, you'd get the annuity, you'd get the hardware sale. The industry wasn't that complicated. It really wasn't, no matter how much we wanted to make people believe it was complicated. It wasn't that complicated. And at the end of the day, a lot's changed. Digital transformation, competing against the industry, innovation, the fact that businesses all over the world use print less every single day. A lot of things changed, and a lot of things have to change. So now the industry has to throw away these checkerboards, and they got to start playing chess. And ladies and gentlemen, when you think about chess, it's strategy taking into account many things, focused long term. It's about strategy. It's not about the next move. It's about 10 moves down the road. It's a strategy, and our industry has to start thinking strategy. A lot of actors in our industry are going to make decisions based in desperation. That's just a fact. And some of our industry's actors are going to make decisions based in strategy. But as an industry, as a leader in the industry, it's going to be important that strategy takes front and center. It's going to be important that we're thinking long term. Folks, back when we played checkers, we could go to those industry events, no matter where they were, and we could hug and kiss each other, slap each other on the back, and talk about pure nonsense. But today, we better not waste our time. We better make sure that if we're going to go out into the marketplace and we're going to seek a continuous relevance, that when we go to these places, we can actually seek a continuous relevance. Just hanging around with each other so we can take a bunch of pictures of each other that we can plaster all over the internet for the next year is not going to be a good strategy. We need to think about the future, and we need to think about our continuous relevance, and we need to start paying attention to what the OEMs are doing. We need to start paying attention to what the mega dealers are doing. We need to start paying attention to what's going to go on with Dex Imaging now that they're breaking free from Staples. So many things are getting ready to change. Ladies and gentlemen, I was thinking about the consolidation of manufacturing in the print space, and I started thinking about the smartphone. You know, for the most part, there's like two phones. You got the iPhone, you got the Samsung phone. I know there's some other phone players, but at the end of the day, you think about it. You go somewhere, people are on an iPhone or people are on a Galaxy smartphone. That's the reality, right? Well, folks, when you think about the product of print, I guarantee you, there is a hell of a lot more people on their phones than on the printer. Think about what I just said. All across the world, there's a hell of a lot more people using their smartphones than using their printers or their MFP. So why in the world does the printer MFP industry need to have, 500 different manufacturers? We don't. It's going to be about who could take the product and help the end user use that product. Give them a great experience when they use that product. When I think about the smartphone business, who did we have? We had Verizon, AT&T, Spirit, T-Mobile. T-Mobile. Well, we know Sprint's no longer around, right? They're part of T-Mobile. And at the end of the day, when you think about the print industry, we got the dealers out there in the marketplace. We got distributors out there. We got mega dealers, small dealers. We got OEMs in their direct operations. Does anybody believe that, 5, 8, 9 years from now, we're going to be delivering print equipment like we are today? Anybody that says yes to that answer, please don't watch the rest of this show, because I believe you're living in a complete fantasy land. And, you know, you're probably not going to appreciate watching The End of the Day with Ray if you live in a fantasy land. Folks, Fuji Film, Konica Minolta announced they were going to have this joint venture. They're working on it. As I said yesterday when I was going through Kyocera's numbers, I believe Fuji Film will just eventually absorb all of Konica Minolta. I don't see Konica Minolta surviving. And folks, look, you know, I've been pretty critical of Konica Minolta because I'm just tired of Konica Minolta, to be quite honest with you. I'm tired of the fact that they've had the industry's media and analysts all through America, pretty much probably all over the world the same way, where they've controlled a narrative that was a false narrative. They continuously run around talking about adjectives all the time, how fantastic and great they are, but they don't prove any of it with real numbers or real math. And quite honestly, any OEM leader, I don't care what part of the world they're in, every time their financials come out, they got to do emergency meetings with the industry's media analysts to try to explain things so they can distract the marketplace from the realities, is an OEM that I believe is probably going to get absorbed or completely go away. We've seen their financials over the last 4 years, a train wreck mess. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it would do the industry a service if Fujifilm would just go in there and take that entire company off the planet. Whew, that was a lot to say, but I'm thinking it's true. We talk about this joint venture between Konica Minolta and Fujifilm. You've read the press release. Folks, I want to circle one thing on that press release that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. And it says 3 other business alliances. And underneath that it says, discussion and agreement on other strategic collaborations related to the subject business will be addressed separately. You know, they could say related to the subject business. They could be talking about the business of print. They could be talking about the subject business of Konica Minolta. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I really do believe that Fujifilm will absorb all of Konica Minolta. And I think the industry should start positioning themselves for that reality. And if Fujifilm absorbs all of Konica Minolta, how does that play out in the marketplace when you think about delivering products to the end user? That'll be my next slide. We've seen the Rico, Toshiba Tech, Etra company they call it, Etra. Folks, at the end of the day, I'm not sure Rico is the OEM that can lead a consolidation of manufacturing. And I shared some of those reasons with you yesterday. Rico's inability to produce operating profit above 3%. Rico's inability to be focused on the importance of profitability. Rico running around buying up IT services companies, talking about this IT services stuff they're doing out in Europe, when just a few short years ago, they had like a $3 billion impairment charge, and a lot of that impairment charge had to do with Mindshift. What was Mindshift? Well, a big IT services company here in the U.S. At the end of the day, it just seems to me that Rico has made some terrible decisions. They've really struggled with any kind of acquisitions they've ever done. Does anybody remember Icon? Does anybody remember Lanier? At the end of the day, does everybody remember the year 2017 when Rico decided to go ahead and give back most of their direct operations here in the United States? And that's when they did that billions of dollars worth of impairment charges. Does anybody really believe that Rico can pull this off? I don't. So now let's talk about this. Let's start out with the distribution at the street level. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some interesting things going on in the marketplace. We got Xerox going through their reinvention. Xerox making an announcement. We're not going to manufacture anymore, pretty much. So it goes back to what I've been telling you all about Xerox for 5 years. Xerox is the largest dealer. Xerox delivers products to the end users. They supply and service those products. Dex Imaging. Dex Imaging just broke away from Staples. Fantastic news for the Doyles. But they didn't break away from Staples for status quo. They broke away from Staples so they could build $1 billion plus worth of distribution here in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just show you this. This is what I think is going to happen with Dex Imaging. I think they're going to end up with FlexPrint. Stay tuned. I think the announcement will come any day. I think they're going to end up with Ubio. And I also think there could be a possibility that one day Pacific Office Automation will join in the club. Dex Imaging could eventually be a $2 billion organization here in the United States. That's just reality. And at the end of the day, there has to be some consolidation. There has to be some changes in the private equity. If you look at some of these private equities had these assets for way too long, there's going to be some major shakeups in the year 2024 and the year 2025. I assure you. And I think about Fuji Film with Konica Minolta. If they absorb Konica Minolta, what would they do? There's a couple of options. I mean, folks, think about this. What if Fuji Film absorbed Konica Minolta, went over to Xerox and said, all right, Xerox, now that we're friends again, we want to make a whole bunch of equipment for you. We want you to take this Konica Minolta distribution to street level and just take all that over, and we're going to be the OEM. Whew. Y'all understand what I just said? If Fuji Film gobbled up Konica Minolta, gave all that Konica Minolta distribution at the street level to Xerox, that would be pretty crazy, wouldn't it? Be pretty disruptive, wouldn't it? What if Fuji Film called up the Doyles and said, hey, we just took over Konica Minolta. You bought a bunch of their direct operations in the U.S. We want to sell you all the rest of them. Will you take all of the direct operations for Konica Minolta in the U.S.? And oh, by the way, we'll do you a favor if you do it. We'll become your main OEM. Holy smokes, boy, the other OEMs, they're all freaking out right now. You mean, oh my gosh, Ray, if that happened and Dex Imaging just started selling all the Fuji products, holy crap. I mean, those other OEMs are thinking, shoo, if they're up to $2 billion worth of distribution and Fuji's their main line, because Fuji did a deal with Dex to get Konica Minolta direct in the U.S., holy smokes, we could really shake up some distribution. Ladies and gentlemen, it's called chess. And I assure you, the folks at Xerox, the folks at Fuji Film, and the folks at Dex Imaging are probably playing chess. And they're hoping a lot of other folks are playing checkers. But as we watch these consolidations of manufacturing take place, we better start thinking how that's going to affect us in the distribution at the street level. Let's talk about who will manufacture. So ladies and gentlemen, if you look on the gigantic sharp interactive board, I've already got the Fuji Film and the Konica thing. Let's all make the assumption they figured that out. Like I said, it'll just be Fuji Film absorbing all of Konica Minolta. We got the Rico Toshiba Tech thing. That's in place right now. We got our friends over here at Kyocera. Well, they're not doing anything as far as consolidating yet. And we got our friends over here at Canon. We all know that Canon is the major manufacturer for HP. But folks, I got to tell you something. When I think about Kyocera, and I shared a lot of this yesterday, I think Kyocera is ripe to play in this space, the space of consolidating manufacturing. But I don't see it the way a lot of you see it. I don't see Kyocera starting up their own. What I see is Kyocera taking out this one. Rico Toshiba Tech, the company's called Etra. Rico owns 85% equity in that consolidation, that joint venture. It wouldn't be that hard for Kyocera to take the controlling interest away from Rico, join the club. That gives Rico Toshiba Tech a pretty good A4 product line. And we all know that the communist-controlled Lexmark, whose owner's 9-star got banned over slave labor, it's not really an option going forward here in the United States, probably the rest of the free world either. So the OEMs have got to make some decisions. All the alignments they had with Lexmark to make their A4, I'm sure most of those alignments have been all torn up and thrown in the trash. As a matter of fact, let me just do this really quick. Let's just get rid of Lexmark and 9-star. Don't even want to talk about them. They can stay over there in the communist-controlled China, right? Let's talk about the free world. When I think about Kyocera taking over that equity position in Rico, that's a pretty powerful place. Could you imagine Kyocera, Rico, Toshiba Tech, all delivered into the marketplace, equipment that's consolidated, that's manufactured in a consolidated business model? Who could they go after? Could they call up the Doyles? Hey, Doyles, we want to be the exclusive provider for your copy machines and MFP printers. What's that going to look like? What do you need from us? Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to tell you this, but the smaller dealers are going to come way down the list as this stuff starts to consolidate. And I know you have great relationships with your OEMs. You have great relationships with your DSMs, all the people, you love them all and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, as the industry's manufacturer starts to consolidate, there's going to be a lot of painful decisions that are going to be made. And those smaller dealers, they're not even going to be thought of when those decisions are being made. That's just the reality of life. And I think we're going to see a lot more. Well, let's just say that TD SYNNEX probably going to play a really big role in the future of the small dealerships. The future of the small dealerships, you probably won't even be buying from the OEMs. You'll probably have some agreements with people like TD SYNNEX so the OEMs can focus on their major relationships. Hate to say it, but I really think that's where we're heading. When I think about Rico, they make a great product. I was just in Boston talking to the team, got to really understand that product and where that product fits in that transactional document printing space. Rico's a small company. They're well disciplined. They're profitable. Will they join one of these consortiums? I think they'd be crazy not to. And who knows which one they'll join. But I would not be surprised to see the Rico product line being delivered through one of these consortiums one day, or one of these joint ventures, if you will. When I think about Brother, I got to tell you something, that what they're doing in that industrial print space, I started making people aware of that. I don't think a lot of people even understood what they were doing with the Domino business unit. But they're definitely going to be a player in this somehow. I just don't know where they're going to go. They're going to have some options. When I think about Sharp, this is an interesting one to me. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, if you just look on the board, a lot of you are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. I would not be surprised if Sharp joined in with the Fuji Film joint venture in the consolidation of MFPs and printers. We just saw where Sharp is taking on the Fuji Film production stuff, high-end production stuff. It's not unlikely that they couldn't join that consortium, that J.V, if you will. I mean, folks, here's the deal. Foxconn used to own the majority in Sharp. They don't own the majority in Sharp anymore. I believe at one time that Foxconn wanted to really be a player in the manufacture of MFPs and printers. I'm not sure if they do now. I think they got their eyes set on other things. And at the end of the day, Sharp joining forces with the Fuji Film, J.V, and whoever else is in that J.V with Fuji Film. Maybe Epson joins in there to give them some inkjet technology. Maybe Brother joins in there. Who knows? But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think there's going to be more than 3 left. There's going to be 3 manufacturers. And I believe that Canon will be one of those manufacturers. I believe that this Rico Etra, if you will be one of the manufacturers, but I do believe that Kyocera could easily take over the equity position in that. And then, of course, our friends over there at Fuji Film. It's going to be Fuji Film, it's going to be Kyocera, and it's going to be Canon. What they call these joint ventures, who knows? Where these other folks join, who knows? But we are going to consolidate manufacturing, and there's going to be some pain associated with it. I wanted to share this because I thought this was really interesting, and this goes back to my argument of why I believe Rico just doesn't have the right disciplines to control a joint venture around manufacturing. So let's look at Rico. This is their first 9 months numbers, and I shared a little bit this yesterday when I was talking about Kyocera's numbers. But they got a $235.1 million operating profit. They're sitting on 2.2% on sales of $11 billion, 9 months in. Fujifilm, same 9 months in, and folks, I'll compare these next to each other when they both issue their financials for the year, which ended in March of 2024. But let's look at Fuji, 9 months in. $14 billion in revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, 9.5% operating profit, $1.3 billion. I mean, this is nuts. And when you think about Fujifilm compared to Rico, there's no comparison from a ability to understand the importance of being profitable. Rico, as I said yesterday, really sucks at operating profit and the ability to grow their operating profit. So if you're going to have a JV about consolidated manufacturing, which one, if you were an investor, and Rico, hey, we're going to do a joint venture, we're going to consolidate manufacturing, and then Fujifilm, hey, we're going to do a joint venture and consolidate manufacturing, who the hell would you be comfortable with? To be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I would be comfortable right here. Right here, I would be not so comfortable. I'd be like, well, I don't know, Rico. I mean, maybe you ought to clean up your house and get things in order because you've been miserably unprofitable for a long damn time. You don't really show the world you have any discipline. You're all over the place. You're jumping here, you're jumping there, you're buying this, you're buying that. You got impairment charge. I mean, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, there's no comparison between those two companies. Here's the chart I showed you yesterday, folks. I mean, you got to do your own homework too. When the end of the day with Ray, the show comes to you and gives you some thoughts, makes you think a little bit different, go start looking at some of these financials. You'll be like, holy crap. Yeah, I mean, who really believes that Rico can control some joint venture? It's fantasy. Kyocera, don't be surprised one day if you see this headline. Kyocera takes controlling interest in Etra Company. This is what I'm thinking. Kyocera, you take 70% of that company. You give Rico 15%. Toshiba Tech has 15%. You all go out in the marketplace, align with the right people, get that stuff into the end user's hands. And Kyocera, that gives you a little bit of room. You could sell off some more equity, but still have control. Folks, at the end of the day, don't dismiss Kyocera. And I really believe that Rico is not going to be able to do this. Just my opinion. And Rico, if you really want to run around Europe and buying up IT companies and do all the things you're trying to do, maybe you should focus on doing those things you're trying to do and doing those things profitably. Maybe you need to start playing chess with your managed services and your digital transformation products. Because if you're going to play checkers with your street level distribution and you're going to play checkers with the consolidation of manufacturing, you know what's going to happen? Well, I would just go ahead and look at the Konica Minolta financials and you'll be looking at your future. Just something to think about, my friends, because we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.